Hey guys, it's Christian. For this video, I'm going to try something new. It's going to be kind of like an update video of a previous video I did called What Marvel Phase 5 Needs to Do. And for that video, I talked about all the upcoming Marvel projects for Marvel Phase 5. And a lot of the stuff I didn't really know, like a lot of stuff about the plot synopsis or like trailers or footage or anything. So some stuff might be out of date. So that's why I want to do this updated video. Also due to the fact of Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania's kind of critical and financial failure, so to speak, Bob Iger and Marvel decided to do kind of like a shuffling of release dates and different projects. Like some projects are getting delayed, some projects are kind of being, taken off the slate, and there's not really like a release date associated with it just yet. So a lot of the stuff from my previous video is kind of irrelevant. So with this video, I kind of wanted to rearrange kind of the thoughts I had for that previous video, as well as kind of give new information that I've learned kind of over the past couple months, because I filmed that video back in November. So a lot of stuff was definitely either out of date for the present time, or theories that I had back in the day just don't really make sense anymore, especially after Quantumania came out. They kind of like wiped out a lot of theories that I had. So with this video, I kind of want to just have like a kind of a fresh start. So kind of the structure with this is that I'll kind of play my past video, and I'll kind of jump in with kind of my future me's current thoughts with it, just to kind of update a little bit more and just kind of keep things a little bit more relevant. So it'll be definitely kind of like an interesting experiment, but I hope you stay on board and continue watching it. So with further ado, we'll jump in with
Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Yeah, I'm actually really looking forward to this one. As I kind of said in like my previous video, like I'm a huge fan of the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie. The second one was fine for me, but although it did have a lot of like great moments, especially with Yondu, with this whole sacrifice and everything, I thought was great. And then Peter's relationship with Ego, I thought was good too. But I just thought with that one, it kind of doubled down on what everyone liked from the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie, instead of kind of like building up on it and kind of shifting things. Yeah, I think with this one, it can go really deeper into Star-Lord's kind of storyline, with kind of like his reeling after the loss of Gamora, the loss of the real Gamora, and then them trying to find this kind of new kind of alternate dimension Gamora, which would be really cool. So I think in this one, Gamora meets up with the Ravengers and she becomes like the new leader of the Ravengers. So I think that could be a really cool storyline for that character, where it's like a completely different Gamora, and then Star-Lord kind of has to kind of deal with not only losing the real Gamora, but then seeking out this new Gamora who's completely different from the old Gamora, and kind of give him kind of like more of like, I guess, more agency in the story, kind of give him more drama to his character. And I was reading up on James Gunn's ideas for Volume 3, and how this is supposed to be kind of like an ending to the whole Guardians of the Galaxy iteration, this kind of iteration of Guardians of the Galaxy. And I think, at least for me, I think it'd be really cool if, Star-Lord kind of sacrificed himself for the Guardians in a way, and then, they can kind of like move on and become this newly formed team that Quill formed, and they can kind of go off into the galaxy and, be Guardians and protect it from all these different intergalactic threats. So I think that that'd be really cool for his character. And I know he also said that Rocket is supposed to have like a big part in this movie as well. Even if he becomes the new leader of the Guardians of the Galaxy, I think that would be a really cool arc for his character, because in the first one he was kind of more of the he was kind of like antagonistic. He was like the one who's just in it for the money. He was just he was just in it for himself. And then by the second one, even the second one and in Infinity War, he was still very much like I just want the best weapons in the world, or just trying to get away from all the danger and everything. So, and then by Endgame, his character kind of shifted a little bit, where he was really like all for his family, so to speak, where like Groot is obviously his best friend, and then the rest of the Guardians become like his family. So that'd be kind of cool if he becomes the new leader of the Guardians, if they decide to kind of kill off Star-Lord's character in a way, and in like a epic sacrifice.
Hey, just jumping in here real quick. Now that I know the actual premise of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, the new version is that the Guardians are supposed to be adjusting to life on Nowhere, probably after the events of the holiday special. And with this movie, it's going to be about Rocket, his past, and things kind of resurfacing, and the Guardians have to protect him. And we know that the main threat is the High Evolutionary, who made Rocket who he is. Like, he was just a normal alien raccoon, and then the High Evolutionary put the mechanical parts within his chest to like expand it, and made him more of like a bipedal killing machine. Before I get into like the rest of my review, I just wanted to briefly talk about how excited I am for that. There's going to be like a lot of theories that Rocket might die in this one, which I think would be obviously very, very sad. But I really feel like this is going to be kind of like the resolution to Rocket's character. He'll definitely be going through a lot in this movie, dealing with his past and maybe there'll be some personal conflict with the High Evolutionary. Maybe he's like, hey, I built you to be this kind of killing machine, and then suddenly like you've grown a heart, like what's going on? So yeah, I think there'll be like a really good character arc for Rocket's character, because I'm sure James Gunn has made it known that like Rocket's his favorite character, and that he really wants him to have a really good arc in this movie. So yeah, if he ends up dying in this one, maybe he'll give his life for the Guardians, and maybe he'll kind of go out with the High Evolutionary and kind of bring an end to all these plans and everything, and the Guardians are free to live on. So yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of talk about that briefly here, and yeah, let's jump back into the theories.
And I think another thing that I would be really excited to see would be kind of like the continuation of the whole Aisha Adam Warlock post-credit scene at the end of Volume 2, because there's like 5 post-credit scenes at the end of Volume 2, and it seemed like none of them really kind of led into anything else beyond that movie. So it'd be nice to finally see like, okay, finally we're going to see, Aisha and the Sovereign and Adam Warlock in full form. And Will Poulter is supposed to play Adam Warlock, and he's obviously a great actor. He's got eyebrows for days, those intense eyebrows. So it'd be cool to see him in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and especially as Adam Warlock, because out of all the adaptations, like from the comics to the films, Infinity Gauntlet is like one of my favorites. I've read that countless times, and in that story, Adam Warlock is obviously the one who kind of resolves everything, and he's clearly a big character. So when they hinted at that at the end of Volume 2, I was really excited, because I thought he was going to show up in Infinity War and Endgame and kind of be like the savior who kind of helps save the universe. They kind of gave that role more toward Captain Marvel, which is a whole other story. But yeah, it'd be nice to see Adam Warlock as like the main villain, the main threat in Volume 3. And then hopefully he'll have like an arc and become like an ally, so to speak, to the Avengers, and maybe help out in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. Kind of like how Namor in Wakanda Forever, he was technically an ally for the Wakandans, but he's still kind of in it for himself in a way. So I kind of hope they do that with Adam Warlock, where at the very end maybe he turns against Aisha and then takes out the Sovereign, and then he becomes maybe like flies off and he'll say like I'll return, but only when I see fit. And I know in the Infinity Gauntlet comic series, there's the character Pip, who's also was hinted at the end of Eternals. So it would make sense if maybe he flies off and meets the Eternals, and then kind of brings them into the fray for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So yeah, I can definitely see them planting the seeds here and there to kind of continue the adaptation of like Infinity Gauntlet and like all these other future Avengers movies and stuff. So hopefully they do that, because I think that'd be really cool to kind of tie in all these kind of disparate threads together. Because I talked about it in my last video, but it just seemed like Phase 4 especially, there's just like a bunch of different like storylines, different tones, and none of them really connect. I guess Kevin Feige was saying that like Phase 4, like a lot of the things are kind of more self-contained. Like a lot of like the movies and the series are kind of more self-contained, and it doesn't really tie in as much. But I guess it was just kind of jarring, because phases 1 through 3, everything kind of tied in, even though maybe some things were a little bit more self-contained, but maybe there's like a little Easter egg or a little like post-credit scene or something that kind of tied in everything into the Infinity Saga, the overall Infinity Saga and everything. Whereas Phase 4, there's like a lot of like post-credit scenes and a lot of kind of self-contained stories where it's just like, okay, how does this all tie in? And I feel like with Phase 5, this is kind of like a fresh start to the multiverse saga. We're getting all these tie-in stuff. And then so far, at least from the movies and shows I talked about earlier to now, it seems like everything's kind of tying in a little bit more. So we'll see if that continues. As I said earlier, like I think I'm a little bit more excited for Phase 5. I think there's a little bit more connective tissue, a little bit more of a through line to get us to the end. So we'll see. But anyway, let me move on with Guardians 3. But yeah, overall, I'm excited for Volume 3. Like the Guardians in general are just like some of my favorite characters. So we'll see how they all tie in. And I think just having more kind of drama, more weight to this movie, kind of having it be more of like a resolution to the Guardians storyline, kind of like what they're doing with Ant-Man. It seems like they're kind of going more into like a darker tone with the comedic characters. Scott Lang was obviously a funny character in all of his movies, and now he's kind of going through some stuff in Quantumania. And then I'm hoping, just based on like the casting and like the plot, the premise and everything, it seems like they're kind of going more into a darker direction. So I hope they stick with that with Volume 3, and yeah, I'm excited to see it. All right, and then we move on to Secret Invasion. Actually, yeah, really looking forward to this one. because Samuel L. Jackson, Nick Fury, it'd be nice to see, what he's been up to since the events of Far From Home, see what he's been doing in space, maybe get more tie-ins with that, because obviously he's going to be coming back down to Earth as Skrulls are popping up within like the government and just society in general. So yeah, it'd be nice to kind of get more explanation of like what he's been up to this whole time, get more of Talos and his people more involved, kind of explain like what they've been up to this entire time. Yeah, just kind of give more backstory to the Skrulls, just because we got a little bit a hint of it in Captain Marvel of like who they are and everything and like the different factions. It'd be kind of nice to kind of dive into them a little bit more, like what are their motivations, like why are they here, why do they want to bring down the Marvel Cinematic Universe and the society and everything. Because I know this is based on the Secret Invasion comic series, but I have a feeling they're not going to stick to that, because I read up on it. And I was just like, yeah, they're not going to stick with that. So I think it's going to be more of like a smaller scale type story, which is totally fine with like adapting, because I know it's like a huge series. And I think this is just going to be like a 6-episode series. So just kind of have it more self-contained and more focused on Nick Fury and Agent Ross and Maria Hill and all these new characters who are trying to deal with everything, and Rhodey as well. Will be really cool, kind of like a spy espionage paranoia thriller where you don't really know who's who within the government. So I think that could be a really fun idea for a show. I also read up that we're going to kind of explore more of Nick Fury's past and some other characters as well. I know we got a little bit of it in Captain Marvel, kind of like what I was saying earlier, like how Nick Fury kind of like got into S.H.I.E.L.D. and kind of how he like rose up in the ranks. But yeah, it'd be nice to kind of get maybe every episode kind of has like a flashback, kind of like Godfather Part 2 style, where they kind of flash back to Nick Fury's past of rising up in the ranks and how he became director of S.H.I.E.L.D., how he met Coulson, how he met Maria Hill, how he met Natasha Romanoff and Clint Barton and everything, to kind of get that kind of tie-in, because he's still, a mysterious character. And, I think having more explanation, more than there was in Captain Marvel, would be really good for his character. And I think we as fans obviously would like to see more of that. And I love Nick Fury. He's the one who started the Avengers in the first place. It'd be kind of cool to see how he created the Avengers Initiative. So we got a little bit of that hint in Captain Marvel, kind of how he kind of developed it, kind of how he had tabs on the different Avengers characters before he kind of brought them all together. But yeah, I'm really excited to see kind of like a more grounded kind of spy espionage show within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And another thing that I think would be really cool is if they kind of delve more deeply into the Kree-Skrull War. So we got hints of that in the first Guardians of the Galaxy movie with the Kree, and then obviously in Captain Marvel with the Skrulls. So it'd be kind of nice to see like kind of like what started the whole thing. Maybe get some more flashbacks to that. So I don't know how much they're gonna explain all that, but it would be nice to have maybe like the opening scene is like the origin of like why the Skrulls are enemies of Earth, why they made enemies with the Kree. Maybe see more of that conflict, more of that war. Yeah, maybe we'll see more of like Ronan or more of Talos. But I know this is more just like speculation at this point. Like I don't know if they'll kind of dive that deeply into it. I think it's going to be more of like the grounded story, like on Earth with Nick Fury and the other agents and everything. But yeah, it'd be kind of nice to see more of like Talos kind of explaining what happened back in the day with the war and everything, and like what caused it. And then lastly, I think just setting up Rhodey for Armor Wars, because I think that was originally going to be a series, now it's going to be a movie. That kind of got pushed back. But yeah, it was kind of nice seeing Rhodey in Falcon the Winter Soldier for like a brief second. So it'd be kind of nice to see him in a more of like a bigger role within the Marvel Cinematic Universe post Endgame, to kind of see him more involved in the government. Maybe we'll get more of like how he's reeling from, the loss of Tony, the tension he has with Sam Wilson about, passing on the mantle of Captain America. Maybe we'll get more Captain America New World Order tie-ins, maybe just like little hints and stuff of like what's going on with those characters, maybe some Thunderbolts tie-ins as well. But yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Rhodey in a larger role in this series, just because he's been there since the beginning. He's been there since the first Iron Man, even though obviously it was a different actor. Don Cheadle instead of Terrence Howard, but his character of Rhodey was there. And I know there's like different theories and stuff that like Rhodey might be a Skrull, since it was Terrence Howard in the first Iron Man, and then the second Iron Man it was Don Cheadle, and then something that looks completely different. It's just like it's another black actor. Let's just it's fine. No one will notice. Like, let's get the lightest actor we can and then replace him with the darkest actor we can, and then have it be the same character. So, yeah, sorry, little tangent, but anyway, back on track. I don't know how I would feel about him being a Skrull, but I mean, I guess it would kind of be like a meta joke or something that, suddenly he looks completely different from one movie to the next movie. He was like a shapeshifter or something, but anyway, having him in a larger role within the Marvel Universe would be a really good choice, and then set up future events in Armor Wars. Kind of just plant the seeds for his character and like what he's up to. All right, now we move on to Loki season 2. I know I talked about it a little bit with my previous video where, I wasn't the biggest fan of Loki, so I'm not super excited for Loki season 2, but I know we're getting one, so I'm hoping that for this one we kind of see more of an explanation of, I guess, the consequences of killing He Who Remains, and then the timeline kind of splitting up. Skip more explanation of the multiverse, kind of like what I was saying before about, okay, was it really bad that we split up the timeline into all these multiverses and all these branch universes and everything, when clearly there's already a multiverse established in Multiverse of Madness? So it's like, okay, did we create the multiverse in Loki, or was it already there? And maybe like these are all like the variant universes where different versions of these characters from these multiverses appear. Like that, I guess that's just the confusing aspect of Loki, is that like, okay, where did the multiverse start? Who created it? Was it Loki who did it after Sylvie killed He Remains? So I hope they kind of tie that in a little bit more. Kind of like what I was saying earlier about like Phase 4, that just didn't really seem like there was like a lot of connective tissue. There wasn't really a through line. There wasn't really like a focal point of like where the multiverse starts and how it spreads out and everything. So yeah, I really hope they kind of just explain that a little bit more. Who knows, maybe Loki season 2 will just be a fresh start, which I guess they're kind of hinting at the end of season 1, where like nobody knows who Loki is. Mobius and Renslayer and all them, they kind of like lost their memories of Loki and everything. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. Maybe they realize like, oh shoot, we kind of already explained that there's already a multiverse in Multiverse of Madness, so we kind of have to like retcon it in a way and kind of start everything over. So hopefully they talk about that a little bit more. But yeah, we'll see. But yeah, I guess something that I hope to see more is like just more explanation of the TVA, the people who work in it. Obviously they're bringing in different actors and everything. The actor who played like Short Round in Indiana Jones is going to be in it. But yeah, I think it'd be really cool if he's like, this new character that kind of teams up with Loki. And I think he's supposed to be some kind of like analyst character or something. So maybe we'll get more explanation of like who the TVA is, like what they do, like their history throughout the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and just get more explanation really of like what's going on. Maybe he'll be kind of like the character who explains everything to Loki. Maybe he didn't lose his memory, and maybe he and Loki kind of team up, with Mobius and Renslayer and all the Hunter characters, and kind of figure out what's going on, and with Sylvie as well. But yeah, I just hope there's just more tie-ins to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general. Maybe they find out about King the Conqueror, and then that's how he kind of gets involved into the Avengers movies. And then maybe Loki becomes an Avenger in a way. That'll be kind of like a cool twist for his character. Whereas like in the first Avengers movie, he was obviously the main villain, and now in this movie, if he ends up being in Kang Dynasty, he's actually one of the Avengers and actually helps fight alongside them and like defeat Kang and everything, since he's, partially responsible for He Remains being killed and then the multiverse splitting up and, Kang in a way kind of rising to power and everything with his variant. So I think that'd be a really cool tie-in for Loki's character. And yeah, I think this would be a really cool opportunity to kind of give more backstory to He Who Remains / King the Conqueror, since he was first introduced at the end of season 1 of Loki with He Remains. And, he was kind of like giving all that exposition to Loki and Sylvie about, the multiverse and, him being a conqueror and everything. If there's like a post-credit scene in Loki season 2 where like Loki meets up with Scott Lang, and because we haven't really seen those two together. Like I guess we kind of technically saw them in Endgame in a way where where this whole thing started, where Loki got the Tesseract and then teleported to the desert, and then that's where Loki kind of went off from there. So that was kind of like their only interaction. But yeah, to see more of that tie-in together where like Loki has all this information, and Sylvie too, if they decide to kind of bring her more into the roles and everything, it'd be cool to see those characters all kind of meet up and, you know, kind of start to form this kind of the new Avengers in a way to take on Kang, since Scott, Hope, Cassie, Hank, and Janet have been facing Kang in the quantum realm, and then Loki and Sylvie facing He Who Remains in, you know, the TVA and everything like that, to kind of have that crossover and have them kind of exchange, like, I know this information, you know that information, so now we can kind of work together to, you know, defeat Kang, you know, now that he's out and he's conquering everything. I think that'd be really, really cool to have like that sort of tie-in and that sort of connected tissue. So we'll see what happens with that, but I think it'll really, really exciting if they actually do that.
Hey, just jumping in again. I just wanted to address the post-credit scene in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, where Loki and Mobius actually go back in time to like the early 1900s and go to the expo with Victor Timely, which is one of Kang's variants. And there's like theories going around that the presentation that he had is kind of like setting the stage for the TVA, the Time Variant Agency. Obviously, Loki's like very much in shock. So we'll see how that plays out in Loki season 2. So I'm actually kind of excited for that. I'm glad they're finally kind of addressing all the branch timelines problem that they had at the end of season 1, and that they're kind of showing the steps of how they're trying to resolve it. So we'll see. We'll see how this ties in more to Kang Dynasty and Seer Wars, and especially with the other post-credit scene where we see like all the different variants of Kang kind of all assembled together. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm glad that one thing that Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania did right was setting the stage for the future of Phase 5 and Phase 6. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, anyway, let's jump back into the video.
All right, now we move on to the Marvels. And with this one, I'm pretty excited for. Not super crazy excited, but I think it could be interesting. I think the thing that's kind of drawing me to it the most is the whole switcheroo aspect, where at the end of Miss Marvel, you know, she, you know, tries to activate her powers, and then she's suddenly transported somewhere else, and then Carol Danvers' character kind of gets teleported to her dimension. I think that'd be a really cool twist. I know eventually they'll all kind of group together and, you know, be the Marvels and everything, but to have like maybe like the first act of this movie kind of be kind of like the switcheroo that these characters are going through, be a really fun aspect and kind of get fans on board with this storyline and everything. But yeah, I think the thing that I'm most excited for is kind of seeing these characters in like unfamiliar situations, seeing Captain Marvel suddenly in this teenage girl's bedroom in New Jersey. It's like, wait, what the heck is going on? I think something that Marvel should do, which I'm hoping they do with Captain Marvel's character, is kind of like humble her character down a little bit more, just because, especially in Endgame and kind of in Captain Marvel, she's kind of like this OP character, this like overpowered character where she can kind of just swoop in and take down Thanos' ships. She's kind of like the Hail Mary of the Avengers, you know, can hold her own, go toe-to-toe with Thanos and everything. With Captain Marvel, it wasn't like my favorite movie, and, you know, she's not my favorite character. Like she's obviously a very like strong character, which was great, but I feel like that's kind of like the only aspect to her character. She's just strong, and that's it. Like I really liked more of like, you know, like the flawed characters like Black Widow or like Gamora, Hope Van Dyne, you know, Wanda. They have like a full personality, like a three-dimensional personality where they can be vulnerable, they can be flawed, you know, they can make mistakes and stuff like that. And with Captain Marvel, she's kind of like, you know, perfect in a way. She's confident, you know, she doesn't make any mistakes, you know, she's like overpowered and everything. So I think kind of bringing her character down, so to speak, bringing her into like an unfamiliar situation, and then having her team up with these two different heroes would be really, really cool for a character. But yeah, speaking of which, I think seeing Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, because I think in this movie she's supposed to switch places with Monica Rambeau, and then suddenly she's in space. So like, talk about unfamiliar situations where, you know, suddenly you're in your bedroom in New Jersey, and then suddenly you're in an astronaut suit in space. So I think that'd be really fun for her character as well. Kind of like a fan service moment for her where, you know, she's idolizing Captain Marvel, and then suddenly she finally gets to work with her in a way. So I think that'd be really cool, and kind of like a lesson of like don't meet your heroes, where on one side you have Miss Marvel kind of idolizing Captain Marvel clearly, and then maybe like she finally meets her and it's like, oh, you're not really who I thought you were going to be. And then, you know, having to like deal with, I guess, disappointment in a way of like meeting your heroes, and then, you know, kind of gradually learning to like work with them and understand them a little bit more of like who they are and why they do what they do. So I think that'd be a good maturing aspect for Miss Marvel and kind of set her up for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars, of like learning to be a team player, learning to see people who they really are and not necessarily how you kind of see them kind of in your mind's eye and everything. So I think that would be cool for her character. And then on the flip side with Monica Rambeau, where, you know, there's like some tension between her and Captain Marvel, which we don't really see too much. It gets kind of hinted at in WandaVision, but we don't really see it in fruition. So once we kind of put those two characters together, I think would be really interesting. Kind of see that conflict where it's like opposite Miss Marvel, where it's like I don't idolize this person, but suddenly I have to work with them in a way. So I think that'd be really interesting, seeing those two get together and team up. But yeah, I'm actually kind of excited for this movie. Like I wasn't the biggest fan of Captain Marvel, so when it was going to be like Captain Marvel 2, I was like, okay, yeah, of course, because I know it made like $1 billion at the box office, so you got to make a sequel. But to kind of bring in Miss Marvel, bring in Monica Rambeau, kind of add to this dynamic and be the Marvels instead of just Captain Marvel 2, gets me really excited. And then, like I said before, the whole switcheroo of like characters transferring to different locations of where the previous Captain Marvel was, and then all of them kind of coming together for this conflict, because I don't really know what the threat they're going to be facing. I don't think they announced it just yet. But yeah, I'm looking forward to that, looking forward to the team aspect, and then the character arcs that the three women are going to be going through be really interesting. So yeah, I'm actually pretty excited for it, so we'll see how it goes. Oh yeah, and lastly, hopefully they'll have more of like a tie-in of maybe like a Nick Fury tie-in to just like see like what he's doing with the Skrulls, and then kind of setting up this new Avengers aspect. Obviously, he was in the first Captain Marvel movie, and he has a relationship with Captain Marvel and with Talos and the Skrulls. So it'd be nice if maybe there's like a little tie-in at the end of this movie that kind of ties back into Secret Invasion, because chronologically Secret Invasion comes first. So maybe there'll be like a tie-in to the Marvels at the end of Secret Invasion, and then we kind of get more of like Nick Fury's role in the MCU, just because based on like the lineup that we have right now for Phase 5, it seems like he's going to have like a really significant role. Yeah, it's nice to see Nick Fury kind of like a bigger player in the MCU like he was in Phases 1 through 3, and kind of set up this next generation of Avengers to kind of set the stage for Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars. So yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But at least for now, if they do end up killing him off, they have more than enough heroes to take on Kang and Kang Dynasty. So we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of mention that briefly. All right, then we move on to Agatha, Coven of Chaos. I liked Agatha in WandaVision. I liked her up until like episode 8. Episode 9, she kind of became like the typical Marvel villain of, like throwing her her purple energy at Wanda, and became just like this big CGI battle. Kind of like what I said in my previous video. I think it would have been interesting if at the end of episode 8 of WandaVision, instead of her becoming like the main villain, fighting Wanda, maybe she became Wanda's kind of dark mentor in a way, and like she introduces more of the dark hold. She kind of snaps Wanda back to reality. It's like, hey, you created this reality in Westview with this fake Vision and fake Tommy and Billy, but hey, I can tell you about a dimension where you can visit the true forms of Billy and Tommy. You can be with them, and that could have been a cool episode 8 twist, where they actually have to form an alliance to kind of figure out more of like the dark magic, and have her become the Scarlet Witch, and tap into like the dark side, and tap into like those multiverse aspects and everything. So I thought that would have been cool. Clearly didn't happen. They kind of had their big battle, and then Wanda turned her back into Agnes, and she was like this normal nosy neighbor and everything. So it'd be interesting how they're going to tie that in, because I don't know if it's going to be a sequel or a prequel. If it's a sequel, then they'll have some things to figure out. But if it's a prequel, I really liked the flashback episode in WandaVision where they showed how Agatha became, this dark witch, and, just wiped out all these other witches and everything. So if they have a series just kind of explain like her origin, how she became this dark witch, how she got a hold of like the dark hold, how she kind of sensed Wanda, I think that would be really, really cool. So we'll see what happens with that if it's a prequel. But if it's a sequel, which I think it might be, honestly, I don't really know where they would go with it. But yeah, I love Kathryn Hahn. You know, she's a great actress. I mean, I loved her back since Parks and Recreation. Her character in that I thought she was great. And then obviously all the comic that she's in, like Anchorman, and even in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, where she played Doc Ock, that version of Doc Ock, I thought she was great. So I mean, whatever she's in, I'm game for it. It just depends on what the story is. Yeah, because I know I was looking at the casting, and like Dottie Jones, kind of like the blonde woman in WandaVision, is supposed to be in it. So I don't really know what she's going to be doing. Maybe she turns out to be like a dark witch or something, and she becomes like an apprentice. I don't really know. So yeah, like I said, I don't really have too much expectations for Agatha, Coven of Chaos, but I think if they lean into the prequel aspect, more of her backstory, I think that would be an amazing show. But if it is a sequel, then yeah, they have some figuring out to do. So yeah, I guess we'll see what happens with that one.
Hey, just jump back in with another update. So I found out that a bunch of actors have just been confirmed for Agatha, Coven of Chaos. Deborah Jo Rupp, who played Sharon Davis, aka Mrs. Hart, is going to be in the role as well, and that a bunch of Westview characters are going to be in it too. I also found out that the actress who played Agatha's mother in the flashback scene of WandaVision during that whole like Coven scene is going to be in it as well. And then just like a bunch of other actors are going to be in it too. I'm playing Aubrey Plaza, which is going to be awesome. I hope that she plays like a witch character or something. That'd be really cool. So yeah, it kind of gives me more grounding of like what the story could potentially be. I'm sure the spell on Agatha is like broken or something. Maybe after Wanda, spoilers for Doctor Strange Multiverse Madness, she gets killed off. So maybe due to her being killed off, the spell kind of lifts on Agatha, and then maybe she becomes like the witch character that she was back in WandaVision. Becomes evil again, and then maybe she contacts like all like the Westview citizens to kind of like rise up somehow. Maybe she teaches them how to become witches and warlocks themselves, and maybe they start like this kind of revolution or something. Maybe there'll be more like flashbacks to time with her and her mother, and maybe she'll be kind of like the new kind of Scarlet Witch of this new iteration. Maybe she'll team up with Kang and become like one of his right hand women or something, and take over the multiverse and whatnot. So like I didn't really know too much about what was going to go on with this show, but just based on like this casting and stuff like that, it kind of gets me a little bit more excited. And hopefully there'll be more developments with the Westview characters and with Agatha, and we'll get more set up for King Dynasty and Secret Wars. So yeah, we'll see. But anyway, back to the video.
All right, then we move on to Daredevil Born Again. Yeah, I'm really excited for this one. Just getting those little hints of Matt Murdock in the MCU, like in No Way Home, where he's like the lawyer. I mean, everyone in the audience just kind of like flip their lid for that scene and kind of finally see him, because yeah, as I said before, the first 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix were some of my favorite series. It was probably was my favorite Marvel Netflix series at the time. So to see him finally back in the MCU, I know he was in She-Hulk, which was clearly the best episode in that show. If you want to hear my thoughts, you can watch my previous video on that, but I won't dive into that. But yeah, just seeing him in the MCU, seeing Wilson Fisk as Kingpin, hinted at in Hawkeye, and then finally he's going to be in this Daredevil Born Again show. It's going to be really fun. And I think I read reports that they're not going to continue the storylines that they left off from the Netflix version. This is going to be a whole new story, clearly Born Again. So yeah, we'll see what the tone is for this one. Is it going to be like a lighter tone? Are they going to keep the dark aspects of the show? I think if they kind of like had a mixture of both, because clearly Marvel's not afraid to, have like a darker tone in their shows. Like Werewolf by Night was definitely very violent, where I was like surprised, like, oh shoot, this is on Disney Plus. But I mean, I didn't mind it, but I was just like, yeah, if you have kids watching the show, I was like, oh shoot. Just based on the tone they had in Hawkeye, kind of having like that kind of TV-14 aspect to the MCU, I think would be really cool, where it can be violent but not too violent, which I think they can do perfectly, just based on even like past movies, like Civil War, like other, Infinity War, there's like some pretty brutal scenes in those movies. Anything the Russo brothers touches, like you get that gritty feel. So having that in Daredevil Born Again, I think would be really cool.
Hey, just jumping in again. So I found out that John Bernthal is actually going to be casted in Daredevil Born Again, and he portrayed Frank Castle / the Punisher in the original Daredevil series. And I guess there's kind of like some discussion of like how violent is he going to be, how Disney Plus friendly is he going to be. And as I talked about previously, Disney Plus isn't afraid to go dark. like I said before, with like Werewolf by Night, it was like, pretty violent and everything. So I think they're going to lean into kind of like the TV 14 aspect with the Punisher. So I think that would really, really cool. And then I know Vanessa from the original Daredevil series is going to be in as well, portrayed by a different actor this time around. So we'll see how it goes with that. And then I found out that the actress who played, Karen Page and the actor who played Foggy Nelson are not going to be in the show as well. So that's kind of unfortunate, but I know like they're kind of trying to reintroduce kind of like the MCU version of Daredevil. So I guess with this version, like they don't really want to address too many things from the original series. Like I have a feeling they kind of want this to be more of like a Matt Murdock centric show with Punisher and Wilson Fisk kind of in the peripherals in it as well. So we'll see how it goes. I like those characters in the original Daredevil series, but I'm sure like with this iteration, they just kind of want to switch things up a little bit. I know there's like other actors who are cast in this show as well, actors that I'm not really familiar with, but I know some of them were saying like some of them are supposed to be like a love interest for Wilson Fisk, and maybe a couple other ones will be like a new ally for Matt Murdock, or stuff like that. Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see the Punisher in this new show, and yeah, we'll see how it goes.
I think what they can really draw from is kind of like the whole duality with Daredevil, where we have like, he's a lawyer by day, superhero by night, which they hinted at in No Way Home and in She-Hulk, but now they can really kind of get into that a little bit more. Where She-Hulk, kind of failed. This can be part lawyer show, part superhero show, where, maybe every episode he's dealing with a different case, where, this can kind of be like the reboot, so to speak, of She-Hulk, what She-Hulk tried to do, where, it can be like a procedural drama, in the first half of the episode, and like by the second half of the episode, it can be like he can be, taking on criminals and everything, and kind of show that duality. It's just like, okay, do I take on these criminals in court, or do I take them on in the streets with my fists, I think that would be a really cool, interesting aspect for his character. Charlie Cox is great. He's like he hasn't made anything bad in the MCU ever since being in it, so I think he can bring a lot of like gravitas to that role, and then kind of bring that duality and that conflict that he has. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then as for Wilson Fisk, I know this one he's going to be injured, so I don't know if this is going to take place before the events of Hawkeye, or if it's going to be kind of leading up to those events, or if it's going to just take place afterwards. But I think having like the setup in Hawkeye, the through line in Echo, and then having a resolve in Daredevil Born Again would be really cool for his character. I don't really know what his arc is going to be in this. I don't know if he's going to be like a super huge villain, bent on revenge for all these Marvel heroes, or if he's going to be like more humbled in a way, because he kind of had that side in the Marvel Netflix version, where he kind of had the sensitive side, with Vanessa and everything, his wife. So yeah, maybe being shot by Echo will kind of humble his character a little bit more, and maybe he becomes like an ally for Matt Murdock, and maybe he kind of betrays him in the end because he wants all that revenge they had from the Netflix version of Daredevil. But yeah, I think it'd be a really interesting dynamic, have like that kind of Batman Joker relationship, where it's just like are we allies, or are we enemies? Or if Fisk kind of joins Kang, in a way, I'm not really sure how he'll do it, but maybe he can kind of become more of like a ground level villain, while Kang is taking over, the overall multiverse and everything. And then maybe Fisk can become like an ally in Secret Wars or something at the last second. Maybe pull a Loki in Infinity War, where he actually tries to go after Thanos, and Thanos kills him off in a sacrifice, where like Wilson tries to betray Kang and gives his life for Matt Murdock. But yeah, anyway, that's all kind of speculation. Kind of overall, I'm excited for Daredevil Born Again. Yeah, I think it could be a really, really cool just reboot to this character now in the MCU. So yeah, so we'll see what happens. But yeah, I'm really excited for that one. All right, now we move on to Captain America New World Order, another one that I'm really excited for. As I said to come before in my previous video, Falcon and Winter Soldier I thought was fine. It really could have just been a movie, in my opinion. So I'm glad that for New World Order that's actually is going to be a movie, which I think is totally going to continue the storyline that left off at the end of Falcon and Winter Soldier, where Sam Wilson is kind of accepting the mantle as this new Captain America, and now he's the Black Captain America, and then all the baggage that comes with that. So I think that's going to be really cool to explore. And then, you know, the kind of aspect of like, you know, the fake news and everything being in this new world order and everything, kind of seeing him deal with that would be really, really fun to explore. And then obviously the side characters, like the new Falcon, Joaquin Torres, who will be Sam Wilson's kind of like sidekick, kind of seeing how he kind of deals with being in this role and everything. And then obviously like Isaiah Bradley, I'm hoping that he'll become like a really cool like mentor figure for Sam Wilson of like, hey, we maybe, you know, this Black Captain America and everything, but here's all the baggage that comes with it. Because me, I dealt with being a super soldier and then, you know, kind of was experimenting on and then kind of got casted aside, which they hinted at in Falcon and Winter Soldier. I'm excited to see him kind of brought into a New World Order, kind of as this kind of like mentor figure to Sam Wilson, and kind of as he kind of deals with this new role of being the new Captain America and everything that comes with that. And I'm also excited to see Samuel Stern, aka the leader in this movie, because I know he was hinted at way back in the day in The Incredible Hulk. So it'd be kind of nice to finally see him brought into the MCU again, just because there's like a lot of like characters that they had from The Incredible Hulk. They kind of just left on the sidelines, but then slowly but surely they started bringing them in, like, you know, Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross, Abomination, Emil Blonsky, kind of bringing all these characters back in. So it's kind of nice to see like, hey, Incredible Hulk is actually relevant to the MCU. Because I know they hinted at his character at the end of Incredible Hulk, where, you know, he gets his head knocked against the machine and like the little serum is kind of going into his injury and everything, and then his head's expanding. So it'd be nice to see that. Again, I don't really know too much about the leader from the comic series, but, you know, just seeing that little hint at the end of Incredible Hulk seems like, oh shoot, this guy is a little loco. So yeah, it'd be cool to see how he kind of ties into the MCU, how he ties into Sam Wilson's storyline, and how he becomes either like antagonistic or an ally, and how he kind of fits into like the tone that they're trying to set with this movie. And then like one final thing, maybe they'll have like more of like Thunderbolts hint. Maybe it'll be like a post-credit scene, kind of set up that movie, because, you know, Bucky Barnes is going to be in Thunderbolts, as well as Sam Wilson and Val, and they were all characters from Falcon and Winter Soldier. Kind of cool to see like connective tissue between those two movies as well. Kind of see like hey, yeah, whatever happened to Bucky? Maybe this can be like a post-credit scene to set up the Thunderbolts and everything. So yeah, it'd be nice to see that. Yeah, and also be cool to see Harrison Ford replacing William Hurt as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross as well. You know, just because obviously I'm a big Harrison Ford fan. You know, Han Solo, Indiana Jones, Blade Runner, everything. He's great. So to see him in the MCU would be really cool, since he's already technically part of the Disney family. So to see his debut as Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross would be really cool. And then maybe if they have a hint at like Red Hulk, because I know that's a big aspect in the comic books. I don't know if they'll do it, because I know they don't technically have the complete rights to the Hulk, maybe down the road or something, since at the end of She-Hulk they hinted at a World War Hulk or a Planet Hulk storyline with Scar and with Bruce Banner. So maybe we'll see what happens with that, and if they ever do like a second season of She-Hulk, which if they do it, maybe they'll hint at Red Hulk for that one as well. Again, that's all speculation. They probably won't do it. Maybe they'll have like a hint of it, and then maybe they'll save it for, you know, Kang Dynasty or Secret Wars or something, the idea of a Red Hulk, which would be kind of cool. But yeah, we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, but overall, I'm really excited for Captain America: New World Order. It'd be really cool to see just a new Captain America, not only just the next Captain America movie, but just a new Captain America with Sam Wilson in that role, because he was great ever since Winter Soldier onwards, just being really loyal to Steve Rogers and respecting his legacy. Because Steve Rogers, Captain America, is my favorite character in Marvel phases 1 through 3. And then Sam Wilson is clearly the best man for the job. You know, I know Bucky was also kind of in the running for that, but, you know, clearly he's, you know, kind of a murderer. So maybe that's not the best person to replace you. So yeah, I think Sam Wilson's definitely the best person for the job. And I've been looking forward to seeing him as a new Cap since the end of Endgame, with that whole tag at the end, and then seeing his arc in Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then finally resolving in Captain America: New World Order, seeing like the fallout and all the baggage that comes with being the new Captain America. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing that one, and I think it can be really good. And then speaking of which, Thunderbolts, we'll move on to that one. Looking forward to this one. I know this one will be kind of like the MCU version of Suicide Squad. And I think, you know, having James Gunn, who directed the Suicide Squad, not the first Suicide Squad, which was but the Suicide Squad I saw, was actually really good. So maybe if James Gunn, I don't know how involved he's going to be in it, or if he's going to be involved in it in general. I don't know if he is. But if he's kind of like comes on as like a writing consultant or something of like, hey, this is how you kind of form a team of anti-heroes. Like, not only did he kind of master that with the first two Guardians of the Galaxy movies, with having these kind of like anti-heroes kind of form a team, but he also did it with the Suicide Squad. And yeah, that movie was amazing in my opinion. So yeah, I think kind of bringing that aspect into Marvel will be really cool, just because you have, Bucky Barnes and John Walker and Ghost and Alexei and Yelena and Val and all these like disparate characters that are just like on the fringes of the MCU, where it's like, oh man, how are they gonna kind of coalesce into one team and everything, which I think would be really interesting to see. So I definitely wasn't expecting them to make this kind of movie, because they first announced it at D23, and I was like, wait, they're doing a Thunderbolts movie? Because I know the Thunderbolts are big in the comics, and Thaddeus Thunderbolt Ross is the one who's kind of like kind of trying to form like the anti-Avengers who would do like all the stuff that the regular Avengers wouldn't do. So I was like, wait, how are they going to do that? And then they kind of announced all these different characters that are going to be in it, and I'm just like, oh yeah, that actually really be really cool. So I'm glad this is a movie. I think it could have been cool if it was a series, and every episode kind of centered around a different hero on the team. But yeah, I'm glad that it's a movie as well. Because, I mean, obviously all these characters are already established in other movies and series and stuff, so we already kind of know who they are. So to kind of just see them all kind of come together into this one team would be really cool. And then obviously seeing them in Secret Wars and Kang Dynasty would be really fun dynamic. Kind of, bending the rules in a way of like, what it means to be a hero and what it means to like fight all these supervillains and stuff. So I think they'll have a really fun dynamic. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this movie, and I think it could be really, really good. But yeah, I'm already kind of imagining like the different character dynamics, like kind of like how it was in the first Avengers movies, where all these characters just hate each other. Like it'd be interesting to see Bucky Barnes and John Walker on the same team, how they kind of conflict, how Yelena and Alexei kind of conflict. Because yeah, we've kind of seen them all in these separate movies and series, so to have them all come together would be really entertaining to see their interactions and everything. And then maybe they'll kind of tie it into Quantumania, since I know Ghost is going to be in this movie. Maybe the post-credit scene will be an interaction with Ghost and Janet, since they kind of had like, this kind of alliance to kind of help Ghost kind of, get over her, her illness, her transparent abilities to kind of, solidify herself and everything. So it'd be kind of nice, like that would be like the hint to kind of draw them into this whole multiverse saga and everything, where yeah, there would be like a post-credit scene where like Janet mentions Kang and how they need more allies to face Kang in this threat, and then, maybe can throw like Loki and Sylvie in there as well, have that whole dynamic. But yeah, overall, I'm really looking forward to Thunderbolts. I think it'd be really cool. I mean, I love all these different characters that are on the team, and I think their dynamic just in general will be really fun, and then how they're kind of brought into the multiverse saga would be really, really interesting as well. So yeah, I think there's really a lot of hope for that one. We'll move on to Blade. I don't really have too much to say about this one. I'm really excited to see Mahershala Ali in the role of Blade. I loved him in Luke Cage. He was definitely the best part. Or spoiler alert, they killed his character halfway through the series. I'm just like, what? And I think anything that he was in was definitely the stronger half. The second half of that season was just like, eh. But yeah, he was definitely the best part of that show as Cottonmouth. And then him as Uncle Aaron in the Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, he has that great voice, that intimidating voice, and then also as a Prowler as well. It was cool. So finally seeing him, as a hero in the MCU would be really cool. I haven't seen the original Blade. I've seen the second one, but I haven't seen the other ones. But I really like the tone, the aspect of those movies, kind of like the darkness, fighting off vampires and everything, and bringing in fantastical side of the Marvel Comics into the MCU would be really fun, because I know they're kind of hint at that, like with Moon Knight and with Werewolf by Night. Maybe they're forming kind of like the Midnight Suns. Again, I'm not really familiar with that storyline, but I know like a lot of friends of mine were talking about that. So I think that could be cool, kind of like what I was saying in my previous video, where like they kind of have like this dark Avengers universe where they can all kind of team up. You have werewolves and vampires and mummies and stuff like that in the MCU on a team. Like maybe this can be like their version of the Universal monster movie universe that they were trying to start with The Mummy with Tom Cruise, but that didn't go well. So maybe this is kind of like their version. It's like, hey, we're doing our own version here. Sorry for you guys, but at least we're succeeding. But they probably won't do that. But yeah, just seeing more tie-ins with Eternals, just because so far there's not really anything that's kind of hinting at Eternals at all. So I think kind of bringing them into the story would be really cool. Maybe like this is another aspect to bring them in, because of the post-credit scene of that movie was Blade talking to Dane Whitman's character, talking about the ebony blade, and kind of tying that in, because that you know, that's the tool that both their characters use in the comic books. I read up on that. Having them be brought into the story through this connection between Blade and Dane Whitman be really cool. And then also kind of tying that into Adam Warlock maybe having an alliance with Pip at the end of Eternals, and kind of bring in those two worlds together be really cool. So you have like Adam Warlock, Pip, the Guardians, Blade, Dane Whitman, Eternals, all kind of forming this alliance, and then them kind of moving on into the larger MCU, and then facing Kang in Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars would be really cool. Yeah, kind of like what I was saying earlier, I think Phase 5 is kind of what I wish they started up Phase 4 with. Maybe I'm kind of like overthinking it, but I guess Phase 4 was really just kind of the introduction to some of these essential characters, you know, tying up loose ends from Phase 3 and then setting up stuff for Phase 5. But it's kind of nice to see, like, okay, now things are starting to roll out with this multiverse saga. Things are finally starting to connect. Things aren't just kind of thrown randomly at the walls. Things are really, you know, starting to come together. So yeah, I'm really excited to see that kind of connective tissue finally and everything kind of come together for the next Avengers movies in Phase 6. So yeah, to kind of bring it back to Blade, I'm glad that they kind of have that tie-in to the larger MCU. But yeah, again, I don't really have too much to say. I know it got pushed to 2024, so we don't really have too much to go on with what they're going to do with Blade, and I'm not super familiar with the characters, so I don't really have too much to be excited for, so to speak. But I love Mahershala Ali. I think he'd be really cool to be in the MCU, and yeah, I'm looking forward to see, you know, what aspects he brings to the cinematic universe.
Okay, now we move on to the TBD projects, the projects that have been kind of taken off the main schedule due to there just being a lot of overcrowding with the films and series that were announced previously. So that includes What If and Echo and Ironheart. So this will be an interesting section just to talk about all my theories and stuff like that. So hopefully they'll get release dates sometime soon, because I know a lot of them have essential plot elements that kind of carry on from Phase 4 storylines, and hopefully set up some stuff for Phases 5 and 6. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But for now, here are my thoughts for What If.
I wasn't the hugest fan of What If. I thought a handful of episodes were really great. I thought like the Doctor Strange episode was obviously the best one, and then maybe like the finale with the Guardians of the Multiverse was pretty cool, and even like the Captain Carter episode was also really cool as well. I think it was nice that they set up a lot of the events in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, where we saw Dark Doctor Strange or Doctor Strange Supreme. We saw Captain Carter in the Illuminati, or at least that Dimensions version of Illuminati. So yeah, so it's kind of nice to see that this wasn't just like a self-contained show or anything, but that it really kind of tied in to the deeper Marvel Cinematic Universe. So yeah, I appreciate that. When it comes to season 2, I'm not like overwhelmingly excited, and especially since we don't really know what the episodes are going to be or anything, but I think one of them they announced is like Captain Carter goes against Steve Rogers when he's in that kind of mech suit and everything, so I think that could be pretty cool. I hope they kind of further explore the Guardians of the Multiverse, and then maybe have more Doctor Strange Supreme. I'm also excited for more of the Watcher. I hope they give kind of more explanation for him. Maybe they kind of talk more about the multiverse, kind of round out kind of the events that were in Quantumania, and then kind of set up Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars with that. And another thing that I'm really excited for What If is just kind of more, obviously, what if scenarios with the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As I know with the first season, they kind of centered around Phase 1, all the Phase 1 kind of Avengers characters. So it'd be kind of nice to see more kind of like Phase 2 and 3. Maybe like what if Thanos won at the end of Endgame or something, or what if the Avengers got tempted by all the Infinity Stones or something and it became evil, or something like that. But yeah, just like other kind of what if scenarios. I know they're going to do like a Marvel Zombies, which I thought was a fine episode. But yeah, we'll see if they do like a longer special, kind of like what they did with Werewolf by Night and Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, where they kind of have like, instead of just like a 30-minute episode, they'll do like a 55-minute special. So I think that could be cool. I haven't read that comic. I know it's based on like a comic storyline, but yeah, I think it can be kind of cool, like a Walking Dead in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So we'll see what happens with that one. And I know that there was like another episode that was cut from season 1 because of, you know, COVID happened and they weren't able to finish production quickly enough with all the delays and stuff. So I think there's like a Gamora Tony Stark episode. And then after watching season 1, I noticed that there was kind of like a missing piece to that, where like Gamora and Tony kind of show up and everything. It's like, oh, where'd they come from? Because they were on their separate adventure. So it'd be nice to finally see that episode play out. But yeah, overall, I think What If's like a fun concept. I think if they really delve more deeply into the multiverse and the Watcher and kind of set up future Avengers films with this show, I think it'd be really cool. Maybe have more like serialization with the show instead of having a bunch of one-offs and everything. I don't mind like one-offs within What If and everything, but I just hope that there's more like serialization, more connective tissue within the whole Marvel Cinematic Universe, instead of just like oh, this is just like a fun one and done episode. Oh yeah, and then lastly, I think it'd be nice to see more of like what if the Watcher interfered with different events, because I know he's supposed to be the Watcher, he's supposed to be observant of what's going on, and he's not supposed to get involved with certain aspects of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. But it'd be nice if he broke his oath every once in a while, and we get more consequences of his actions. If he like interfered with like the first Avengers movie, or like with Age of Ultron or something, and get more kind of like repercussions of his actions, I think that would be really cool. And then maybe if he pops up in an actual live action Marvel movie, I think that would be cool to see Jeffrey Wright in his Watcher garb and everything. Because I know they showed a little hint at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 of the Watcher, with Stan Lee is like talking to the Watcher. So we've seen live action Watchers, so yeah, it'd be nice to see Jeffrey Wright in one of them, and then see how that kind of ties into the larger MCU. All right, and then let's move on to Ironheart. Don't really have too much to say about this one. I really like Riri Williams' character in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. I thought it was really cool seeing 2 black women in MIT, or I guess 3 black women in MIT, with like Okoye and Shuri recruiting Riri for this adventure. It kind of reminded me of Civil War, of Tony Stark recruiting Peter Parker's character to fight on his side, where this is kind of like the flip side, where at first it was kind of like 2 white men, and now it's like 2 black women, 2 genius black women interacting and everything. I think it'd be really cool to see Riri's life within MIT, being this 19-year-old child prodigy, and kind of like the fallout after the events of Wakanda Forever, because I assume she's going to be like all over the news and everything, of like being in her like Ironheart suit, and everyone's going to be coming out the wazoo to like get to know her and be friends with her and stuff. So it'd be kind of interesting seeing that whole dynamic, because I know there's been a lot of actors who've been casted in this series of like being like her friends and her enemies and her mentors. And yeah, speaking of which, I'm looking forward to seeing Jim Rash as like the dean of MIT, because I'm a big Community fan. So seeing him as the dean in that show, and then seeing him as a dean in MIT, would be really funny, just because I he had that cameo in Civil War, so it makes total sense that he plays a dean in another show. So yeah, I think that'd be really cool. I'm looking forward to like the tone of this show, just because how she was portrayed in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. She was kind of like this tough character, but she also had like this kind of comedic side, and obviously she's a genius, and is good with engineering and machinery. So it'd be really cool to see that kind of like the flip side of Tom Holland's Peter Parker character in the MCU. And then the villain, the Hood, Anthony Ramos, big Anthony Ramos fan, Hamilton, In the Heights. So it'd be kind of cool to see him in the MCU. And I know there's going to be like some kind of tension between them, like they're going to be like maybe allies and become enemies, where Riri kind of focuses more on like the technological side of the MCU, and then Anthony Ramos, the Hood, is going to be focusing more on like kind of like the magical, mystical side. So it'd be kind of fun to see, science versus magic. But I guess like earlier on in Thor, where it's, in my world, magic and science are one and the same. So we'll see if they ever address that. But I think it'd be cool to see, a mystical villain against a mechanical hero. Be really a fun dynamic. But yeah, so I'm really looking forward to seeing this. I know obviously we haven't seen any footage or trailers or anything for it, but just based on the casting and the premise and what we saw from her in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, it gets me excited for it. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this series, and I hopefully, fingers crossed, it gets to season 2. But if not, I'm excited for 6 episodes and seeing her in the future of the MCU. All right, and then we move on to Echo. This one I'm pretty excited for. Not like super overwhelmingly excited about it. I really liked the character of Maya Lopez in Hawkeye. I thought she was a really interesting character. Not only the fact that she's deaf, but she's also like an amputee, and she's Native American. I think bringing in those kind of demographics into the MCU would be really, really cool. But yeah, I'm really excited to see it. I think one of the biggest things I'm most excited to see is the fallout after the events of Hawkeye, where spoiler alert, she took the gun and like shot Kingpin, and I guess he survived because, you know, the camera pans up. We don't technically see what happened to him, but I guess news reports are saying that, you know, he's going to be blinded, at least in one eye, and then he survived and got away. So it'd be nice to see what, you know, what happened to him, you know, set up the seeds for Daredevil Born Again. So I'm also excited. But as for this one, you know, this one's supposed to center around Echo's familial ties to, you know, the Native American culture. And I think that would be really cool because that's something we haven't really seen in Marvel Cinematic Universe, is kind of like Native American culture or just, you know, films in general. We don't really see a lot of that. So it'd be kind of nice to see, you know, how she kind of goes from, you know, the head of the tracksuit mafia and then kind of coming back into kind of this normal life, the normal life on this Native American reserve and everything. Obviously, you know, she's going to kind of be drawn back into the action because, you know, Kingpin's not going to like lay down quietly and everything. He's obviously going to come back and retaliate. It'd be really cool to see how she's trying to adjust back to her culture, and then suddenly this impending threat comes onto, you know, her land and her people, and, you know, she has to really become like a hero. I'm not really sure how it's going to tie into like the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like I assume, you know, she's going to be a hero and then, you know, fight alongside the Avengers and everything. But yeah, I guess that's the only thing, is like I don't really know if this is going to be more self-contained or if this is going to like really lead into Secret Wars and King Dynasty. Like honestly, I'm not really familiar with her character at all in the comic books, so correct me if I'm wrong, if she's more front and center in the comic books and everything. But at least as far as the movies and films and stuff, I'm not really sure how she's going to tie in. Like maybe there'll be like a cameo from Hawkeye or from Kate Bishop's character, and they kind of like, you know, they tell her about the Avengers, like, oh, there's this initiative and we need more recruits. So I think that'd be cool because like she was a really interesting character in Hawkeye. You know, yeah, she kicked a lot of butt and, you know, took a lot of names. So yeah, I think she'll definitely be, you know, a formidable opponent to whoever she takes on in any films or series moving forward. I hope they go more into her past and everything, you know, her relationship with Kingpin and the Tracksuit Mafia. I know they kind of hinted at it a little bit in Hawkeye, but kind of like what I was saying before with like Secret Invasion, maybe they'll do extended flashbacks to how she got involved in this mafia and how she kind of rose up in the ranks a little bit, kind of explain more of like her family, explain more of her father, explain more of like the betrayal of Kingpin to her father and the whole kind of revenge aspect to that. But yeah, just get more of like who Maya is as a person, you know, how she deals with, you know, being deaf, how she deals with, you know, being an amputee, obviously being, you know, in Native American culture. Because yeah, we didn't really get a ton in Hawkeye, which is understandable. It was about Hawkeye and it was about Kate Bishop, and she was kind of more of like a side character in that. But she was definitely interesting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to see just more of her, more of like a show that just centers around her. Yeah, it'd be cool to see more like ASL in the show as well, just kind of like bringing, you know, the deaf community and everything. So yeah, I'm looking forward to her character. I think she's just you know, very, very interesting. Like I said before, I don't really know too much about her from the comic books, but yeah, so we'll see what happens with this show. I'll give more explanation to her, and yeah, we'll see. I know there's going to be like a possible storyline with Matt Murdock searching for Jessica Jones, which would be amazing, just because, you know, I love. Clearly, I said in like the last video that Daredevil is like one of my favorite series. Like the Netflix Daredevil, like those first 3 seasons were amazing. Jessica Jones was fine in my opinion. Definitely wasn't as great as Daredevil. That was definitely the highlight. But seeing them kind of bring in the Netflix Marvel heroes into the show would be really, really cool. Especially Jessica Jones, because like even though like I wasn't a huge fan of the show, I thought Jessica Jones as a character was great. So kind of seeing her brought into the Marvel Cinematic Universe now with Matt Murdock, with the MCU's version of Matt Murdock, be really, really fun. And then maybe if they bring in more like, you know, like Luke Cage, maybe Iron Fist, you know, you know, bring in the Defenders. Maybe that can be like the storyline for Daredevil Born Again. But I know that's going to be like a little hint for that show. So we'll see if they do that. But yeah, I think that'd be really cool to kind of bring in those characters a little bit more of like the darker Avengers characters into the MCU. But yeah, overall, I'm excited for Echo. I think she's a really interesting character, and I look forward to seeing her have her own series and how she kind of ties in to the overall Marvel Cinematic Universe in general.
And that's the video. Thanks so much for watching this kind of hybrid between old and new video. I kind of have some other ideas for like past videos where I kind of want to do more update videos. So yeah, let me know if you kind of like this different format in the comments below. I'm thinking about doing it for like my what future Disney Star Wars needs to do video. So we'll see how that goes in the future. That'll probably be later on, maybe after the Mandalorian season 3 finale. But yeah, overall, I'm still excited for Marvel Phase 5. You know, I know they kind of had a stumbling block with Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, but you know, I'm still excited for, hopefully we'll get confirmation date of when Secret Invasion will come out, and I'm definitely excited for Guardians 3 and you know, all the other stuff that's going to come out for the rest of this year. So I'm hoping that with this whole new kind of shakeup at Marvel with Disney spreading out the films and the series a little bit more, because you know, with Phase 4, like they were just piling on the different movies and shows, and you know, nobody really had time to like really watch anything through, and it just really felt like quantity over quality. So I'm glad that, you know, Bob Iger is stepping up and saying like, hey, you know, we need to either shelve some projects or delay some projects, or you know, just have a little bit more breathing room between projects. So I'm glad that they're doing that, and you know, I'm hoping that, you know, there'll be kind of like an upswing for Marvel, and that, you know, they'll kind of be kind of like the conquerors of like, you know, the box office and everything like they were before, just more quality films and series. So yeah, we'll see how it goes. But yeah, thank you so much for watching this video, and let me know what Marvel Phase 5 project you're looking forward to, and yeah, I'll see you next time.